Welcome to The Explainer. It's funny. Have you ever noticed how pretty much everyone is willing to say, oops, I made a mistake, but you almost never hear someone say, I'm a sinner? So what's the big deal? Well, from a theological perspective, the gap between those two statements is huge, and that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. I mean, this question really gets right to the core of it, doesn't it? This is how most of us see ourselves. We mess up, sure, but deep down, we think we're basically good people. But what if that whole way of looking at it is the wrong way to even think about it in the first place?
Okay, so this isn't just about picking the right word. This is about two totally different ways of looking at the world. See, a mistake is something you do. It's an action, and you can correct it. But sin, in the biblical sense, is about who you are. It's a condition. One feels like a problem you can handle, right? The other suggests the problem is way, way deeper than just your actions.
Okay, so where does this huge disconnect come from? Well, the first big reason comes down to the ruler we're all using to measure ourselves. And spoiler alert, it seems most of us are using one that's kind of broken. We almost always grade our morality on a curve. You know how it goes, right? Our internal monologue is something like, hey, I'm not perfect, but at least I'm not like that guy over there. As long as we can point to someone who seems worse, we feel pretty good about where we stand. We feel safe. And this chart, it perfectly captures that internal math we all do. We can always find someone to put at the bottom of the scale to make ourselves look better in comparison. We're always grading on a curve, and surprise, surprise, we always give ourselves a pretty good grade. But what if the real test isn't graded on a curve at all? See, the theological standard is totally different. It's absolute. Think of it like a pass-fail test, where the only passing score is a perfect 100. So from that perspective, messing up just one time means you've failed the whole thing. And suddenly, comparing yourself to your neighbor seems kind of pointless, doesn't it? All right, reason number 2. This one's all about language. The word sin itself has, over the years, been stripped of its original power and weight. So the original Greek word for sin is hamartia, which literally means to miss the mark. And that's such a great visual. Think of an archer aiming for a bullseye, but the arrow goes wide. The concept isn't just about a few bad shots. It's about your entire stance, your aim, your whole being pointed in the wrong direction, away from the target God intended. And you can see how this really powerful idea got watered down over the centuries. What started as this huge concept, a state of rebellion against God, slowly got whittled down. First, it becomes a psychological flaw. Okay, something a therapist can help with. Then it's just a simple mistake, an oops. And finally, it's just a personal choice. See what happened? The problem went from being a massive spiritual crisis that needs a divine solution to something we feel like we can manage all by ourselves. And that actually leads us right into our third point, which gets really personal. It's all about our own pride, that deep-seated belief that, you know what, we can handle things on our own. This prayer from thousands of years ago, it sounds shockingly modern, doesn't it? It's this idea that we're keeping a kind of cosmic balance sheet. As long as our good deeds outweigh the bad, we figure we're in the black with God. So you can see the logic here, right? But accepting that label, sinner, in the way the Bible means it, man, that just flies in the face of everything our culture teaches us. It means admitting we're not in control, that we can't fix ourselves. And that's basically an admission of failure our pride just does not want to make. Okay, number 4. This one is a tough pill to swallow. The idea here is that we avoid this whole sinner thing, not because we don't know the truth, but because we know exactly what it implies, and frankly, it's really inconvenient. It all comes down to accountability. So what this is saying is pretty intense. It's suggesting that deep down, we know there's a divine standard, but we actively push that truth down. We suppress it. Why? Because we are terrified of the conclusion it leads to. And here it is, the big inconvenient truth. If sin is real, if there's a divine standard, then guess what? We're not the boss. We're not the masters of our own universe. We're accountable to someone else, a holy judge. And while that is a reality that is so much easier to just ignore or distract ourselves from than to actually confront. And this is where the whole idea of a savior comes in and why it doesn't click for so many people. I mean, think about it. If sin is just a little mistake, if it's no big deal with no real consequences, then this whole grand story of a savior coming to die for us,
It just sounds like a wild overreaction, doesn't it? It seems completely unnecessary.
But from the biblical point of view, the stakes couldn't be higher. The consequence, the wages of sin, is called death. And we're not just talking about your heart stopping. We're talking about ultimate spiritual separation from God. That completely changes the game. It takes the problem from something temporary to something, well, eternal.
Okay, let's bring this all together. Let's do a quick recap of the key reasons, the big barriers that keep us seeing ourselves as just people who make mistakes instead of what the Bible calls sinners.
So you've got these 5 big things working together. First, we use the wrong ruler. We compare ourselves to each other instead of to a perfect God. Then, the very definition of sin has been watered down. Third, our own pride gets in the way. We want to believe we can save ourselves. Fourth, there's this idea of spiritual blindness, that sin itself clouds our judgment. And finally, we actively push the truth away because we don't want the guilt and accountability that comes with it. All of these together build this massive wall, really, that keeps people from seeing their condition the way the Bible describes it, and as a result, they don't see why they would ever need a savior. And that question, man, that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? If those are all the walls that stand in the way, then what could possibly be the bridge to get to the other side? It makes you wonder what it actually takes to change your mind about the biggest, most fundamental questions we can ask about ourselves.